Okay, I'm very excited to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show, Kirk Chisholm, who is a wealth manager. He's a principal of Innovative Advisory Group. He's been in the business for decades, and in fact, he was recently ranked one of the top investment advisors on Investopedia's list of the most influential financial advisors in the world. I happen to be an Investopedia fan. I use it all the time to teach people about investing. And Kirk, I'd like to ask you to teach a little bit about IRAs and why it's important for people to actually take charge of managing a self-directed IRA.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Doug. So IRAs are a great addition for individual investors. Retirement accounts in general, individuals can have a group retirement plan like a 401k, or they can have an individual retirement account which is self-directed. The self-directed version is interesting. I think probably no more than 10% of the population is aware that they can invest outside of the stock market with their retirement account. Most people think of, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, but the reality is they can invest in other areas like real estate, horses, private businesses. And I think it's important that people use their retirement account to invest in areas that they know well. So if you're an expert in real estate, you should be focusing on real estate and not on diamond mines or tech companies. But, in the long-term goals that the majority of people have, it's important to save for your retirement. Retirement is, for many people, are decades away, but there was a recent study that showed that most Americans have a short supply of retirement savings. Well, not even close to what they should have.
Not even close to what they would spend in half a year. You mentioned about a 401k. Do you think when people leave a company, they have the opportunity, they're allowed to roll their 401k into an IRA, or they're often allowed just to leave it at the company? What do you recommend they do?
I think in most cases, it makes sense to take control of their retirement funds, to roll the 401k into an IRA so they can take control of it. Obviously, every decision requires some research and insight, so it's not a blanket statement for everybody. But in most cases, 401k plans offer a limited choice of mutual funds. And some of them do offer a self-directed portion where you can invest into other areas, individual stocks or bonds or what have you. But most plans are somewhat restrictive. Despite the fact that most people think that they're free, 401ks do actually also have fees attached to them. In many cases, they're not visible, so people think that they're getting it for free. It can be true if the company pays for it, but most of them don't. So,
yeah, and I think it's also ironic that people believe a lot of times, they look at the advertising, which they don't understand, like it says a no-load fund. And I guess they're just presuming that everyone who works there is a volunteer, which I think is a general rule of thumb. Don't assume that, especially with people on Wall Street who, Wall Street is about making money, hopefully for the investors, but obviously also for the people on Wall Street. It jives well with what you were saying, that you should invest in areas you know well. It makes sense, therefore, I think, to move the money. Once you're no longer with the company, you don't really want to maintain a connection in their retirement plan. And in an IRA, you can buy anything. And most people, I think, go for the normal stocks, bonds, mutual kinds of approach, or as you're saying, there are other choices. But to me, it seems like a great opportunity to take control of your plan. Do you find it's difficult for people to see the IRA as part of their overall financial plan just because that's not money they're going to be touching for decades?
Yeah, I think most people look at their IRA as a buy and forget mentality, which is not typically the best way to invest. I know there was a kind of a common saying among investors back in the 90s that, buy and hold, and that's the best way to invest. Well, it's not always the best way to invest. It was during that period of time, but a lot of people use buy and hold to mean buy and forget. So, I think most investors should focus on their retirement funds, not on a day-to-day perspective, but they should spend a reasonable amount of time researching their investments and paying attention to them. Just because you're investing in a mutual fund or a stock doesn't mean that it's not going to have problems or, good years and bad years, but it is important to know what you're investing in. And I think one of the, unfortunate things about investing is people really don't understand what they're investing in. So
Lucky
the
they're listening
self-directed
to us, though,
IRAs,
yeah.
yeah.
And they are, in fact, listening on the Goldstein on Gelt show to my guest, Kirk Chisholm, who is a wealth manager. He's been in the business for 18 years. Kirk and I actually are very similar in many ways in that we not only spend a lot of time talking to people, but a lot of time educating people about investing. Kirk's been explaining to us, the concept of taking control of your retirement money by moving money out of, let's say, a 401k plan and into a self-directed IRA so you can decide what to do with it. He also mentioned a critical point for everyone, which is you need to invest in areas that you know well. Don't get bamboozled by advertising or by friends or by not friends who are telling you how to invest. And also, Kirk, one of the things you mentioned I think was very critical, which I just want to touch on, is that buy and hold is not the same as buy and forget. And all too often, I think the mistake that I see is that people don't really pay enough attention to their money. Not that they should be trading actively, but you just got to tune in and see what's going on. What are some of the mistakes that you see people make with their retirement funds?
Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly the buy and forget is a big mistake. Not doing enough research is another one. But I think in many ways the retirement funds, there are a number of rules that apply to the self-directed portion that people don't fully understand. And I think when you're dealing with retirement accounts, it's especially important to pay attention and do your due diligence. There was actually, the SEC had put out a piece a number of years ago about fraud within self-directed IRAs, and one of the points that they made was that fraudsters look for retirement accounts because they know that people aren't going to be touching their money for years, and they can get away with their fraud because they know people are not going to be withdrawing the funds.
Wow, that's interesting.
So that is a critical thing to point out that I think most people overlook because they just think, oh, it's an IRA and I can invest in this, so it must be fine.
Right, even if it's an illiquid investment, they'll tell you that often. You can buy this property, it's not liquid, and not liquid often means it's not even something you want to own. What do you do if it's all well and good to say you should do your research and you should make sure you know what's going on, but you and I probably have met a client here or there who doesn't really like doing it. It's just not his thing. What do you suggest to someone in that case?
Well, if somebody is really not comfortable with investing or due diligence, I mean, that's really why professionals, like you and I actually have these professions, because people need full-time advisors that have the ability and capability of doing research and due diligence and, looking out for their client's best interest. Doing this for a living, I spend an enormous amount of time with the due diligence process. I know that most people out there just have no time or just no interest in doing that due diligence. I mean, it's not fun. We do it, but I do not enjoy it. It's not, it's not fun to go through and dot all of the I's and cross all the T's, but you have to. It's so essential. You'd be surprised at how many legitimate investments just have not done that process. They've missed some critical things by complete accident, but they've definitely missed them. And I'll give you an example. So, if you wanted to invest in a piece of real estate, rental property with your IRA, you can do that. Most people don't realize it, but you can. And, if you wanted to take a loan off of that real estate, you could do that as well, although that does present some other interesting challenges. But the interesting part is, if you get a loan, you cannot be personally tied to that loan. It has to be complete non-recourse. But even if you're working with a lender that understands it, many times there'll still be language in there that puts you as personal recourse, which totally creates a prohibited transaction and will cause an enormous amount of problems for you. So it's those little details that end up being the most important part of the puzzle that most people just assume someone else is doing it for them.
And that's why you have to work with someone, especially really in any transaction, but someone who's a specialist in that transaction. My day job is I'm a financial advisor, but I specialize in people who live outside the United States, like in Israel, and they have U.S. brokerage accounts. And there are a lot of little facts to know that even great advisors in America may not know that because they don't have clients overseas. And on the other hand, if someone wants to work with a self-directed IRA, he would want to talk to a guy like you. Kirk, unfortunately, we are out of time, but tell me in the last few seconds, how can people work with a guy like you and find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Doug. So we run a registered investment advisor, so we are fee only. And, we don't get paid commissions. We're completely transparent and we're fiduciaries. The best way that people can reach us, if you go to our website, which is innovativewealth.com, we have a lot of free resources there, so you can learn more about us. You can learn more about self-directed IRAs. We created an enormous amount of resources on there so people could fully understand self-directed IRAs enough so they can do it themselves if they choose to, or if they feel it's too complicated, which I can't blame you. You could certainly work with us. We work with a lot of self-directed IRA investors and helping them with their retirement investing. We've also created a free gift for this show. It's the 9 most common mistakes that self-directed IRA investors make. And you can get that, I assume it'll be in the show notes, but if you go to innovativewealth.com/Goldstein podcast, and you can get your free gift there.
Yeah, and we absolutely will put a link to all of that at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. Kirk Chisholm, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks a lot, Doug.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Check out all of Doug's money ideas at goldsteinongelt.com. Doug specializes in helping people who live outside the United States handle their U.S. investment accounts. If you have a question that you would like answered on the air or off, contact Doug at his website or send him an email to doug@profile-financial.com.